Okay, good evening everybody. Hope you guys are all keeping well. So let's get straight into the charts. The analysis video for Wednesday, 25th of April 2018. Alright, so let's look at the SPY. Yes, we've got a tail. Some people might think it's a bottom. However, it may be the bottom for a day or two, probably no longer than or no more than that. Let me explain why. Firstly, it's not a very big tail to begin with. Let's look at the volume. There isn't that much volume to speak of. If we compare it to this tail here on the 9th of Feb, that was a big tail on big volume. All the way we came down, we were, we had a lot of sellers and there was exhaustion volume there. Here, we do not have exhaustion volume on the way down, and the tail is very small in magnitude. Another factor, look at this. We hit the 200 on the February the 9th. We hit the 200 again here. We got a bounce on the 23rd. We hit it again, pierced it, closed below, but then they whipped it up again. We have a lot of sideways chop here. This bounce is more than likely only temporary. Now, I think there will be a bounce tomorrow. However, I think it will be very short-lived, and we may have a repeat of what we had on yesterday, Tuesday morning. Let me show you again. Let's look at the after-hours action. So it's 264.79. I'm going to put a line in. That's where the market closed at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Let's get this back to the hourly chart now. So if we stay where we were at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, it looks like we're going to gap up tomorrow by around 0.5%, give or take. The same thing happened on Tuesday morning, yesterday morning, as we covered in detail in yesterday's video. At 10 a.m. we pulled back and we closed below that descending 20 MA on the 60-minute chart. If the same thing happens again tomorrow, we open up here, and at 10 a.m. we come down and we close below the 20 MA on the 60-minute chart. The markets will be heading lower again. Remember, our main guidepost is this 20 MA on the hourly chart. It is so important. If you saw yesterday's video where I compared it to the 4-hour chart, we can really dig deep and see what's going on under the hood with the spiders. So this is really the primary time frame when we want to see, is a market bottoming and going up, or is it not? So that is what is going to guide us tomorrow. So again, remember, if we gap up in the morning and then at 10 a.m. we close below this 20 MA, then we will be able to take either an intraday short or more than likely a swing short. Let's go back to the weekly chart. 20 MA starting to turn, possibly turn downwards. We've got the tail from last week, and again, this is going to be a short-lived bounce. I think the institutions put this tail here just to sort of lure in some amateurs, and they're going to just wipe it down again, and it may be as early as tomorrow morning. Notwithstanding that, as I said in yesterday's video and the day before, we don't want to be all on the short side or all on the long side. We want a nice spread of stuff that's going to move. So for example, while the markets were heading lower in the early part of the day, we are long HK. It opened really unchanged. It barely moved down a couple of cents, and whoosh, for the rest of the morning it went up, and that was even when the markets were low in the early part of the morning. Let's have a look here. Really from the opening gate, this thing just went straight up. Whereas if we compare it to the spiders, this thing chopped down here, for the early part of the morning. So our HK oil stock did well. Something else we have is SLB, Schlumberger. Beautiful action. We're up reasonably on this trade. So if there is a bounce tomorrow, this thing should go higher. Notwithstanding that, with the spiders pulling back in the last week or so, again, here we are hovering above these moving averages. There could be a big move coming. Let's look at the hourly chart on Schlumberger. Look at this, 20 MA curling upwards. I'm not necessarily looking for a massive bounce. I'm going to try and time it with the markets overall. But if we move higher, again, I'm going to take short and sharp trades. I'm not going to stay in the longs for too long because the bias is now to the downside. WMT GLT, a bit disappointing that it went up today, but this is still bearish. And if we look at the grand scheme of things, if I zoom out, this green bar is insignificant compared to all of this chop here. Yes, we've closed above the 20 MA. However, we have this steeply descending 50 MA on the daily chart, and look at the weekly 20 MA, it's already turned lower. So I think on the next move down in the markets, this thing really should start to move low, and a good target would be this gap fill here. What else have we got? We are also long Pandora, which was down in the early part of the morning, but then it reversed. So we've got a sort of quasi tail. So again, if the markets do bounce, hopefully this thing will gain some traction to the upside. I'm conscious that earnings are on May the 3rd, and we've got the May expiry. So I'm just going to have to play it by ear. I do think longer term this thing will make a move. We'll have to decide whether to hold it into earnings or not, although generally speaking, as you know, I don't like holding into earnings, but we just have to play it by ear. GLD, still a bit disappointing that we're now at the lower end of this chop. However, we got a green candle, and we are into the rising 20 MA on the weekly chart. It would be a shame to pull the plug here. Let's take a look at the UUP, which is the US dollar. We're really up into resistance here. This is something I mentioned yesterday. We're into this gap fill, and now look, we're into the descending 200 MA. There is going to be a lot of resistance here, and the dollar at the very least should pull back, if not make a bigger move to the downside. Now, look at the weekly chart on the right hand side. Remember, this is standard trading with Zach methodology. We have a descending 20 moving average telling us the medium term trend on the weekly time frame is still to the downside. Therefore, at this present point, we are overbought. For something to be justified in remaining this high on the chart, this 20 MA would need to turn higher, and the UUP would need to stay here for a few weeks while that happens. Given the fact that we are into this gap fill, we're into the descending 200 MA, and there's another factor as well for the trade. If I let's do this on the weekly chart. If I drag this move from the beginning of 2017, again using this Fibonacci ruler, going all the way down, look at this. We're in the vicinity of the 25% retrace, which is literally around the level with 200 MA. So I'm still going to hold on to the GLD. I am watching it consciously. We're down 60% on the position at the moment. However, given the confluence of factors that we can see, it should start to recover very, very soon. Having said that, the UUP is also a short, I believe, in its own right. And I did look at some options earlier, and if we look at the June expiry, they're pretty cheap. The June expiry, let's look at the 24 put. It's only 22 or 26 cents, which means for this trade to break even, we would only need to be down here. So, and that would be by June. So it's very, very cheap, and I think it's definitely worth a stab shorting the UUP, because if this thing pulls back all the way down to here, those options will be worth 50 cents. So that's quite a good return. So let's keep this on watch, and I'll be looking really to short this as it gets up into this range here. Okay, we are also short FXI. Again, we're stuck below this descending 50 moving average. 20 MA started to taper off. This is bearish consolidation. So we entered it yesterday before the close. We've started to move in the right direction. We got a tiny tail. Again, that's insignificant. I mean, I'm looking for a break now with the overall market when it makes its next move down towards the 44 or 45 level. Again, we've got plenty of time on this one. We've got all the way until June. What else do we have? MS Morgan Stanley. Beautiful. Beautiful move. We've closed at the lows. Nice red bar. Really, I think we're looking to get somewhere down into this range, the 50 level or so, which would also coincide with this 50 moving average. And again, we've got until June, so there should be no pressure here. Again, if the market does bounce, this thing may go higher for a day or two, but I'm thinking with such weakness, this thing really should continue lower. What else? Teva, beautiful move. As I mentioned in the weekend analysis video, someone on StockTwits argued with me and started to bicker about the fact that Teva should be going up. And I said, well, look, you've got a descending 50 moving average, a steeply descending 200 moving average. You've got red candles every time it gapped up at the open, it got sold off, and now it's starting to move to the downside. So I'm looking really for a break of this price here. We've got the May expiry, and earnings is on the 3rd of May. So I'm not looking really now for a bigger move. Originally, I did want this thing to get down here to the 14 level, but it's not happening. And with earnings coming up, again, I'm going to play it by ear and just grab it off the table. What else have we got? Oh, wrong button. Okay, X. I got a little excited earlier on today, and I loved this. I still, in fact, do love it. This pattern, beautiful bullish consolidation, gently moving lower and sideways with a rising 20 MA, rising 20 MA on the weekly chart. I entered the trade, and as I was about to put a screenshot and add it into the trade alerts page, I suddenly saw in the corner here, Thursday 26th of April, is earnings in the evening after the close. And at the same time, Michael, you also messaged me as well to point out earnings was tomorrow. So I thank you for that, and you were really quick. It was literally within 60 seconds or 2 minutes of me posting the fact that I'd entered it, you'd kindly pointed out to me that earnings are tomorrow. So I exited the trade. I made a few cents profit. I think I entered around here, and I caught this move and I got out. I know earnings are tomorrow after the close, so one could argue and say, why didn't I hold it until tomorrow? It's not worth it. If the markets suddenly turn lower at 10 a.m. and this thing just pulls back, it's not worth it. I took 6 cents profit. A profit is a profit. Thank you very much. Sometimes you make mistakes and you overlook things. I was really excited about this pattern, and I remember seeing it earlier in the morning, saying, oh, what a shame I can't enter it. And then later on in the afternoon, I said, wow, look at this pattern. It's just getting better and better. And so I pulled the trigger. And anyway, not to worry, we walked away with a few pennies profit there. What else have we got? Let's take a look at the other indices. We've got the Dow. Let's see what it's doing. Again, a small tail, same picture on the weekly as the spiders. We got to this gap fill actually yesterday. Again, it's hovering around the 200. We hit it back in March. Let's look at the hourly chart. Again, of course, that 60-minute 20 MA is still pointing downwards. And if we gap up tomorrow, again, look for any close below that 20 MA at 10 a.m. Eastern time. What else? Let's look at the Nasdaq. Okay, wow, look at this move. I think that's probably due to Facebook, which reported earnings and reported good numbers. The Nasdaq's up in post-market trading 1%. I mean, wow, it's very rare to see a big move up. There is a lot of excitement in this market, and there's a lot of impatient traders out there, and you mustn't let the excitement get to your head. I'm sure some people are looking at this and thinking, look, wow, look, the Nasdaq's up 1%, I must buy this market tomorrow. You have a steeply descending 20 MA on the hourly chart. I know I keep repeating myself, but it's just so important to recognize how this stuff works. I mean, what would it take for me to then become bullish on this market? If the indices open above and stay above really for a day or so, and the 20 MA then starts to turn higher on the hourly chart, then yeah, you can say we're in business. There's just too much exuberance in this market, and there is too much what's the word? There's too much anxiousness in this market, and so you'll have a lot of people that are inexperienced looking at this gap up, and they'll buy it tomorrow morning. And of course, if at 10 a.m. it closes below, these indices are heading lower. What else have we got? The IWM. Okay, so of all of the indices, this perhaps looks the strongest support level, rising 20 MA, rising 50 MA. However, we've got to tie this up with all of the indices. Look at this. It's the strongest index. We're above the rising 20 MA on the weekly chart. However, you won't have one index move higher without the others, and vice versa. I mean, even if we look at the 60-minute 20 MA, it is still descending, and look at that. That's exactly where we topped out in the last hour of trading and pulled back. So we've got to tie it all together. And let's go back to Snap, which we closed yesterday. What timing? Look at this. We closed out of Snap yesterday. We caught this move from here to here, which is around a 6% move in terms of the stock. We made, I think, 30% profit or whatever it was. In fact, let's go back and see. Yep, Snap, we made 30% profit. And look what happened today. Snap reported they're changing their design, and the market didn't like it, and it just got slammed down 6%. I mean, our option position would have been obliterated. But how did I know to close out here? Because again, looking at the daily chart, you'll say, well, look, you've got upside to the 50 MA. What's the problem? Why not hold out? The first factor, the markets are very schizophrenic at the moment. Any moves to the upside are not lasting. You've got to be strategic and quick. Secondly, which was a big point for me, we're into resistance. Descending moving average, that 50 MA on the weekly chart, and we're into the now 20 MA, which is starting to turn lower. Take the money and run. You can't afford to hang on to things in this market. Now, something to point out on Facebook, as I said, they've reported whatever their numbers were, and the stock is up, I think, around 7% or so. What we're going to do is watch for pattern now over the next few days. We're into this descending 50 MA, and it's more than likely that after the dust settles, which may even be as early as the open tomorrow, this thing just sinks right down and comes right back in, because look at the factors. Descending 20 MA on a weekly chart. Descending 50 MA on the daily chart. So, somewhere in this range, let's look for a signal, and let's be guided by the hourly 20 MA, which although price is now up here, but until this thing turns upwards, this thing probably can be sold. I'm not going to enter straight away at the open tomorrow, but I might give it a few days. I want to watch how do we react, and does this price action dance with this descending 50 MA? Does it give us a topping tail sometime over the next 24-48 hours? And again, we want to match it up with the market as well, because although they've reported good numbers, whatever it is, this thing will probably get sold down, and this bounce will probably be sold. Okay, what else have we got? Tesla. They report on Wednesday the 2nd. However, I still believe this is bearish. Descending 20 MA, and we are consolidating underneath it. So again, I may give this one a shot. I think a move down to anywhere in this range, the 260 level, is on the cards. Now, something else to bring to your attention, as we've said, the US dollar will probably be topping out very shortly. That will, of course, be good for the precious metals, as we've talked about. And one thing that's come to my attention is this gold stock, Hecla Mining. Look at this, rising 20 MA, rising 50 MA. We're going sideways. It's completely unaffected by the recent pullback in the markets. And look at this, the 20 MA on the weekly chart is starting to turn higher. So this is something I think that we can get into, something to keep on watch, maybe a little bit more consolidation. But once that dollar starts to pull back, this thing really should start to make headway up to the 450 level. So this one I'm going to put into my short list, and I'm going to be ready to enter it really in the next few days or so. Alright guys, I think we'll leave it there. So just to conclude, this bounce will probably be short-lived as long as the 20 MA on the 60-minute charts points downwards. The bias will be to the downside. Let's look to see if we gap up in the morning, and if we close below just like we did on Tuesday, we will have another shorting opportunity. Alright guys, thanks very much for your company, and I look forward to catching up with you tomorrow. Have a great evening, everyone.